All right. Hello, everyone. I am here with Levi, one of my friends. Hello. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Levi and I met, is it now
3.5
years ago? Both on the spiritual journey, especially of becoming very whole inside and being able to serve most efficiently those that are on their journeys, and most recently have reconnected. Levi made the trip from Madison, Wisconsin over to Sioux Falls, South Dakota for us to have a couple day respite together and honing in on our own mastery together and diving deeper into especially the patterns around transformation and service. And so this is something that I've been very passionate about. That's why we are titling this episode Transformative Mastery. And it has been a little bit since we've had some conversations like this on the podcast, because there's been a lot of just wholeness found inside. As many of you may know, this channel has been interviewing different scientists and entrepreneurs and spiritual people in all kinds of fields over the last 8 years. And in the last couple of years, that has definitely slowed down quite a bit. And that's because there's a deep inner knowingness that truth has been found, and that there's no longer the need to constantly be seeking it in interviews, asking people, what am I? And now it's more like, after having found what one is, which was never lost, but with deep clarity, now we can converse about what has been found in our mastery around serving those that are on their paths to finding what they're looking for. So that's what we are going to be doing on the channel more often now, which is exciting. So, I mentioned to you the word mastery, and so let's clarify. And it was good because you immediately, like some weeks ago, you were like, I like that. That resonated with you. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mastery is a verb rather than being a master.
Right.
Ongoing. The elevator never stops. Mastery is sort of a lifetime commitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's important to say that it's not that there are masters and not masters, right? Or your classic master and slave thing, right?
Or master and
student,
devotee.
Right, and devotee. This is more that it's some sort of like deep inner awareness of what I describe as being the source of all models. That's how I have described it. It's like, no matter what you see, like what kind of content that you see, what you are gives rise to every single model or interpretation of what reality can possibly be. So you are the source of all models.
That's led to a real opening for me, particularly since sometime yesterday afternoon, of the particle of letting go of all teachers and gurus and systems and bodies of thought and this person and that person, and even getting beyond being your own master and being your own guru, being that which all of that is taking place in, and then it all becomes accessible at once.
Yes.
Not just to pick and choose which you're going to like plug in at any moment, but just to rest. Some say rest as awareness, but rest as the awareness of all of it.
Yeah.
And then then truly infinite possibilities begin to show up.
Right. Right. Okay, so this is also important because we're not, the second word, transformative or transformation, like you said, it's this endless mastery of patterns and of transformation itself. And so on one side you have mastery, which is this, we say, like, self-realization, but it doesn't end when you become no thing that is being everything, which is very funny because we've created sort of a culture of taking a concept and then parroting it as a form of not only of showing that we are realized, but also by, in a way, creating space for bypassing doing transformative work itself.
Yeah, almost falling into that trap of becoming the finger pointing at the moon instead of the moon.
Right.
We become that which is talking about and commenting about and exploring being, as you said, the everything and the nothing, instead of just being the everything and the nothing.
Yeah. And now, as more are on their paths seeking home, it's like, okay, it's not just going to work to tell someone that's on their journey that their mind is no thing and they are actually everything. It's like that there's no separation. That is a byproduct of clearance work. It's a byproduct of healing all of one's own inner deepest wounds and traumas and assumptions of belief systems about what they are and what reality is. And that process, it's like, your story is your fuel, right? That infinity like contracts itself into the story. And then it as it comes home, it does this, unwind. And that typically comes from catharsis. It comes from a deep sort of, acceptance of all of those knots and yarn ball of stuff as one's own, like, you beautifully feel the pain, and then the pain itself is the medicine itself.
Yes,
Yeah.
because there can be no wrong. It's all God, but not that intellectual idea of it's all God. You and I were discussing just before this. People can talk for years about that. Oh, well, this is something that I manifested, and so it's perfect for me right now and whatever. But then to begin to have the wordless experience of it, that this is something I invoked, and it's pointing back at me to take me where I was born to go, back to God, back to self-realization. So, yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
Like, we create our own unique little yarn ball story thing that we then free ourselves from, but then still enjoy the experience of reality itself. It's called infinite creation for a reason. There's, if you don't realize what infinity is, then what you're doing is you're basically saying that there's somewhere to get to where creation ends. But if, you can't, infinite creation, infinity means creation never ends. You want to realize what you are, which is infinite creation and infinite creativity, including this weird mechanism of contracting yourself into that thing and then expanding yourself back and then serving those that are on that same weird yarn ball expanded process. And so the second part about transformation is that you want to be a master of all of the processes of that yarn ball congealing and then it unwinding. And that is this infinite patterned masterful journey.
And that then brings in another component we talked about, that then as one is mastering and having that hitting the geometric high slope part of the curve. Then one is blessing more and more the fractals, the creations that are coming into one's life, being warped in by the field for opportunities for service, no matter how they show up, because, oh, this is going to show me another aspect that I haven't unraveled yet. And this one's going to show me another aspect. How wonderful. And they're all me. And it really, just in the last couple, 3 days, has shifted my entire perception of the beautiful dance of it all. Yeah. Even more so than I haven't even realized till just now.
I love it.
In this conversation. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Like everything that appears is you serving yourself for greater awareness of all your patterns.
Ultra meta selfishness in the ultimate degree, because if it is all me and all for me, then that's beyond even what the word selfish can point at, especially when it's done because wants to serve and serve and serve more and more and more those myriad aspects of capital S self.
Yes.
Wow.
So, okay, so let's review, because this is our foundation. We have these two words, transformative mastery. So again, mastery is, self-realization, but it is being the source of all models, which is an important way to put it, because you're not, you can say the source of all programs, or the source of all ways of being, or the source of all ways of seeing. It's important because you're not solidifying yourself. You're staying in this infinite superposition of all possibilities and ways of being. So you're not contracting into, you need to be this way. This is the best model. This is the way to see reality. Yes. Because as soon as you do that, you've lost all of the other possibility. And now you've segregated who doesn't see that same way as not true, and you are true.
Yeah. You've been lovingly, very lovingly, the last 3.5 days, smacking that out of me, that there is a preferred necessarily prescription. Right. There's infinite preferred prescriptions.
Right.
That's really something, another wonderful little pearl that I'll be taking back to Cheesehead Land.
Yeah. That Hook's 3-year cheddar.
Oh boy,
so good.
Let's not go there. Okay. Let's not go there.
So tasty. Okay, so now that's perfect that you say that, because now the second component to that is the transformative part. Okay, so now what again do we mean by the transformative part? It's this pattern mastery. So if you are that source of all models, pattern mastery is not saying that you are going to have a certain perspective or agenda or way of being or way of operating. Transformation means both contraction and expansion. So meaning if someone is in their process of still, experiencing what it's like to be unethical or immoral towards others, which are actually themselves, and therefore they're creating more karmas and more traumas and more yarn ball knots, it's not your obligation to go and be like, shake them awake and be like, stop doing that. You need to wake up. Don't do that. Because what you're doing is you're not holding everything. You're holding only the expansive side, right? And you're also not respecting the free will of yourself there at the same time. Yeah. So it's the same reason why you as a child took on all the pain. You took on all the pain because you wanted to contract. And so that's why you weren't getting the reflections in those years of being like, don't contract. So now the transformative mastery, if you view it like a little record, right? A record has something that's not moving, and it has all of these tracks that are moving, orbiting around, and they have they're concentric circles, as we discussed. Now, it's like the stylus is the thing is like your awareness and your creative will that is contracting. Your contraction is taking you out all the way to the outermost track, right? Another way to view this is if you're looking out of a black hole and a big bang simultaneously, you are warping yourself all the way out into the fantasy of separation and the drama of being at war with others and being immoral and ethical, all that kind of stuff. And then when you bring that little stylus back across the track, so transformative mastery is you know how to go all the way out and you know how to go all the way in. That's why it's also part of, you got to integrate the dark arts. You have to integrate everything that's related to contractions and related to pain, because you have to know how all of the possible pathways of someone coming back home is equal to all of the possible pathways of someone being lost.
Nothing can be pushed away. Nothing can be pushed away. It all is welcome. And I had bookmarked something. There is one exception to the, if somebody is committed to creating new knots and whatever, and they're stuck there. The big exception is, and we went through it, where I had entered into an agreement with you here for as strong coaching, reflection, mirroring as one can get. And so that then if I'm insisting on my smallness, so if I'm in a relationship with somebody as coach, mentor, whatever, and they're paying me, or we're in an agreement, and then they're showing up like that, then that's the exception to, at least for a while, of then staying strong and going against them and putting it in their face. And if you're in that strong, that deep relationship of doing whatever it takes, and then if they still don't, and then if they still don't, well, then I guess I'm out until you want to show up. Mm-hmm. And this is coming through. I was in such a relationship with somebody till 4 years and a few months ago, and was then, okay, this is done. And there was clarity there at the beginning, but it's gotten deeper and deeper and deeper of there being, hey, I get it. You know, you can only reflect. You can only point so much until it's like, I'm be better off spending my energy sitting on a chaise lounge in the backyard in front of the pool, because you're just. And so again, in this relationship, in the last few days, there were some times, okay, take another look. I'm missing something. I'm not holding up my end as the coachee at the moment. But then if that goes too far, then it's like, okay, then maybe we'll come back into orbit in a few months or a few years.
Yes. And now we can go through what you just did, which was starting to take us into real-time demos of what we're talking about.
Cool.
So we have our little point so far: mastery, transformation, and now we're going into real-time demos. So if you're the source of all models and you're a pattern master, which is basically, you're like a, what did I call it? A formless pattern recognizer or a formless reprogrammer, essentially. Okay, so if you are that, that means you know all of those little, you're learning, you're constantly learning. You're like an AGI, an artificial general intelligence, that's constantly...
Say it slower, because I didn't even get it.
You're like an AGI, artificial general intelligence.
Artificial general
intelligence that's constantly analyzing and understanding and viscerally experiencing all of those different possibilities to contraction and all those different possibilities to expansion. And then you're serving those that are on their journeys. And now we're going to do the real-time demo bit. So this is the third thing, is that the real-time demo is going to consist of a couple pieces of information. Okay. We're going to have essentially 3 core points of the real-time demo. Okay, the first one is the bedrock or the foundation, which is the stillness itself. Okay, so without your nervous system being calm, there is no transformative mastery. Okay? It's that simple. So you're gonna learn how to use the breath to calm your nervous system, to self-soothe. Okay, because it's not, the contrast to stillness is pinball. And it's a pattern that Levi and I have shared and have been doing our work to not be constantly jumping around between different concepts and elaborations and proliferations, right?
Squirrel.
Right? So, right, so you take it back home, to the stillness, and then now you allow that still place to hold the space, right? And it's like loving space. It's there to love and to hold, right? But now it's also there to provide these transformative reflections, okay? So at the same time as in the real-time demo, let's say, you are holding space for a potential client or for a friend or a teammate or whatever, a family member, a coworker, etc.
A waiter in a restaurant.
Waiter in a restaurant even, right. Now, your vast loving space is there to love them exactly as they are, for the perfection that they are as they are, right? Without the need to change anything at all, right? So they feel that like, I can be loved as I am, feeling, right? That so many of us feel like we never got and that we're still chasing. But at the same time, that loving space is also checking in. So now here's the stillness is the first part of the real-time demo. Now the second part of the real-time demo is the word gauge. Okay? Now, gauge, what do we mean? We're gauging their transformative desire. We're gauging their desire in general, what they want, right? You're respecting the will of yourself that you are speaking to at this moment, right? And you're orienting your attention behind their eyes, right? If you are truly no thing, that means you are orienting your attention behind their eyes, because you are not focused on your own ideologies and your own story and your own I need, I lack thing. Instead, you're really, really clear. You're really, really empty. You're really able to hold that space. You've exhausted and cleared so much of your own that now you can hold that. And now when you hold that, you're really behind their eyes, and you check in with them and you say, hey, them, you check in and you say, okay, what do you want? You know, and that's sometimes the hard question, is like, what do I want? Like, you know, usually people that are approaching you are going to be wanting to go through some sort of a transformative process. They're going to be like, is someone able to hold space for me? Basically, that's the general question that's being asked. It's like, I have so much stuff and nobody can understand me. So I'm checking to see if you can understand me. And so now you ask them like, okay, what do you want to work on? And then they give you something. Now that's going to be part of the next subject, but the gauge part that was just said is that their transformative desire is going to show up somewhere between 0 to 10. It's like a little scale, right? Or 1 to 10, whatever you want to say. And your mastery is discerning where they are by asking them questions. You can only query. You can only ask questions, and then you can only see what... It's like a doctor. You know, you walk into a doctor's office, what happens? Right? Does someone with a paper cut get to see the doctor? No. Only someone with a broken femur is rushed to the front of the line to see the doctor and get surgery, right? So that's what your gauge is. You're gauging if it's a paper cut or a broken femur. And the paper cut is basically like, I don't really care about what you're talking about, so I'd rather go back to looking at political propaganda and all kinds of stuff.
Also, what you're saying is their apparent difficulty, or not that they want untied, but as or more important, as you said, is gauging their commitment. How much are they really interested in the exploration, in letting go of what's holding them back consciously or unconsciously? It's almost like there's two gauges. What is their level of discomfort, and how much are how much are they willing to let it go, or how much are they going to fight, kicking and screaming, my support, my love, my coaching?
Yeah. So, yeah, we want to essentially get to the core of their feeling of unease, or their feeling of contraction and this kind of stuff. And like you said, there's going to be varying levels of willingness of wanting to go into that space. And that's this gauge. Now, the 10 on the scale is when you very clearly get a message like, I need your help right now. I'm on the phone. It's like calling, crying because something profound has happened to them that they need you to hold them in their process.
On the first of those two, then the need, not the willingness, because some people can call up, it's a full 10, and then you get it clear in 60 first minute or two. They're committed on holding on to the drama rather than healing it, no matter what they think.
Right.
So that's important. Yes, it can be a 10 and a 3, or it can be a 3 and a 10. And a 3 and a 10 can actually be workable if you think about it. Because then, okay, 3. Now, do you have a 5? Do you have a 7? Because with that willingness, then, okay. Oh, now I'm going to share something with you that I never thought I'd share with anybody. Because if they're showing up as a 10 and they keep it as an 8, 9, 10 the whole way through of their willingness, it's going to go deep very fast.
Right.
That was neat.
Right. You're getting into some of the more complex mechanics about it, and I think that that's great, and we can go through all those real-time demos too. But now, if we take it into like just as most like surface relatable as possible, so they're calling you, bawling for being held in space because something painful has happened, then that they need to be held and seen, and they need to bring awareness to, they need to bring your space to help them bring awareness to their whole process. Now, like you said, from that place is going to be varying levels of how much they actually want to go through and do healing versus just continue this repeating the same story to the next person and the next person and the next person. But here's the difference, is that usually the repeats of stories are happening because there's not actually space that's being held, right? Because
it's a good point.
And then that kind of simplifies the complexity that we were going into. It's like the more spacious of the space and the more of the
go ahead. I'm sorry, just was releasing something different with a particular case of mine. Sorry.
And the more that the pattern mastery is being held over in who's holding the space, it's like they're that quote, master or guide or whoever is holding the space, they're so sharp, which is the third point of the real-time demo, right? So you have the stillness, you have the gauge, and then what I've been saying and is called a snipe, right? It's like the most, and this is what stops the repeat, right? But it requires their receptivity to the snipe.
The surgical strike.
Right. Because when that person starts saying, I can't believe that I was cheated on, or that that my dad did this, or my mom did that, or my spouse did this, or my child did that, or my coworker did this, or whatever, that as that is being said, that it's fully, all of that process, all of the story, all of the fuel is allowed to be present in awareness. And then there's got to be the receptivity to who is providing that reflection at the same time of, okay, now are you going to be able to, the snipe usually includes something like homework, right? So it means that the reflection is a transformation in the form of, are you going to be able to feel all of it in you, all of the pain, all of the wounding, all of the drama, all of that stuff, but are you going to be able to like somatically, like a valve, really, and that's why, tears help so much, like actually, feeling that, like, it's like a release, and like, if you can feel all of that around it and then get how it was you interacting with yourself, right? So sometimes you can't just jump to, it's all you, it's you interacting with yourself, because it's like, no, it's not, I was wronged, I was injured, right? All this stuff. And so you got to do all these facets simultaneously.
Yeah. Two things that, depending on the level of stuff people know, in case soma is a relatively new word, maybe you could fill that in. And
Body.
secondly, that thing that I reacted to, that maybe you could share that, because others it might relate to more than it did with me, that that noise than you were making. That might be interesting for others or not.
But thanks for bringing up the clearing up of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the soma is another way to say body, and body as a contrast to the mind or the intellect.
As in somatic.
As in somatic, yep. So, okay, when you're using the mind, it's like about, I need to do whatever thing to follow. I need to go to the gym, so I need to get in the car and go do that process. Or what do you want to eat tomorrow? Okay, well, we need to go to the store and get this thing or whatever. It's that thing, it's very much kind of like information processing from up here type thing, and creating whatever you're experiencing, but from up here.
Purely visceral, you could say. It's more visceral.
Yeah. It's so the
visceral
soma,
with the mind.
Right. So soma is more like, when you get down into, like, if you follow from here, you're going down, you feel like, right, you feel your heart, right? And then you feel like, right, the opening of your heart to include everything as you. Okay. But then if you keep going down and you can like follow the vagus nerve, right? You can follow that down. And then you get into like your stomach and your gut, right? So it's like, it's down here. And when you, I'll bring it up a little bit, like down here, right? This area, right? And like when you're down there and you can like move your hands around in like a spiral motion, right? Like that deep, low root area of your body holds a lot.
The second chakra.
Yeah, well, first, second, third. It's
but
just
where your
everything.
hand is, that's the second.
Yeah, everything below your heart, essentially, right? You like have everything, your heart below, and then you have your heart up, right? And it's not only that we're not tuned into our hearts and that we're only learning how to be tuned into our hearts, but it's like and that's part of the beauty of the contraction, is contracting yourself away from the love of the whole field, right? You're contracting yourself into just operating from the mind, from a place of constant safety and survival and separation and I need more kind of thing.
Which is the way down low chakras. The mind's up here, but the mind operates generally from the first, second, third chakras.
Right, especially when they're feeling the contraction of what we were describing, right? So now, in order to liberate that contraction, it requires one, like, why do you think that when you look at like shamanic ceremonies or priests or healers holding space, or, therapists that have their loungers and stuff, like, and why do you think people do that motion of like, that, like, why do they do that? Like, why? And it's because you're feeling what is being repressed, and like, to move, to like learn. It's like a new muscle. Like you don't want to just know how to talk like this all the time about different concepts and stuff, but you want to also be able to access another muscle, which is this somatic, deep, 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 like valve. Like you can learn how to untwist.
Sure. And
that valve.
Maybe a nice way to tie it all together, just came to me,
Mm-hmm.
is humans, if there's created an opening on both sides, are going to relate easier and deeper at that somatic level than at a mind level. The connection can be, if somebody's opening up and sharing what's coming from down here, then and another joins them there, then the communication's going to get richer, more concise,
Yes.
and then both their hearts are going to open up.
Right.
Interesting.
Yes, exactly. Perfect.
Who knew that's where this was going to go?
Perfect.
Which is an example of what I'm talking about. Because because this is the topic, it feels like the ease, and give me a sign here if this isn't fitting in, the ease that this is going with, the smoothness of it, is almost like having stepped into what we've been working on these 3.5 days.
Yeah.
That it's just, it's a dance, and it feels like a different way of being.
Right.
So
Right.
really cool.
Right. And you'll notice more and more as we have greater somatic mastery, that we're more able to hold. So you're not just like, again, here's a difference. Like you're not just like in a therapy session where you're just like sitting or laying down across from the therapist kind of thing, right? But it's more like a, like in like a shamanic process. Dun 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 dun. You're basically like, the shaman comes and they're around you and they're doing this kind of like energetic Reiki with you, and you're there like purging your own contractions out of your body. Right. But now the more that you are masterful, what I'm suggesting is you don't need a Amazonian jungle
ayahuasca ritual
retreat thing. And you can use those types of plant medicines in your processes, absolutely. But what you can learn is like, do you know how to just hold and love, right? In full embrace, right? Can you, like, do you know how to love, like, especially men to men? Like, do you know how to hold and love the men that you call your friends? I'm talking about like male bodies specifically. Do you know how to like hug and love another male body? Do you know how to like kiss them on the cheek? That kind of thing. Because as soon as you have, quote, like world leaders, CEOs, politicians, and whatever, as soon as you have them learning how to like, kiss another man, hold another man in that way, nobody's talking about, you have to be penetrative or not, although that is something else. But what is being said is that if you know at least that, all of a sudden now you've created less war. War is the product of not being able to hold your man as the other man as yourself. Go ahead.
What came through is, whether it relates or not, I'm not sure, but what's coming through is, how big do you want to be? It was one of my very first mentors in life. It's, how big do you want to be? Do you want to be so big that you're walking down the sidewalk and two people are having an argument 30 feet ahead of you on the sidewalk, and you let go and you drop into the field and you clear and they stop arguing? How much can you embrace that men, anybody, And then ultimately at the bottom, how much can you embrace yourself? People talk about inner child work, but there's can be deeper levels to that. How much can you embrace every aspect, all those parts of yourself that you haven't forgiven yet?
Yeah.
Because until you do that, then, and that's a good thing, but that male embracing won't be worth anything,
Right.
because you're still not embracing you. And definitely, whatever years of work have gone into my coming here, there's been a lot more embracing of little JJ and all different aspects of myself and my failures and my successes, but now in a healthy way and all sorts of things. So
Yes.
agreeing with what you're saying,
Yes.
but leave names out of it. But if world leader A meets with world leader B, their embrace, great. But if neither one's embraced fully themselves yet, all their inner aspects, all due respect to what you're saying, which is good, it's going to be pretty much superficial and for the cameras.
Right.
If
Yeah.
you get what I mean.
Yeah, and there's enough already contraction around and we'll leave leave that now, but
Maybe the subject of another podcast.
yeah, right. Oh, like
We're doing great, though. We're doing great with how much we enjoy each other's minds and energy and stuff. And I think we're running pretty much on your loose schedule so far.
yeah, we've been doing these. Yeah. So as you embody more of the stillness within yourself and you more clearly gauge the desire of yourself in that other that is asking for transformation, your snipes are not just going to be using concepts and words. Your snipes are going to include when there is that emotional somatic release stuff, you have to learn how to hold them to facilitate that process.
Yes.
Right. So that's what we're trying to say with this last bit. And like, by learning how to do that, especially again, it's not just male to female bodies, it's women with women, men to men. You gotta learn how to hold if you want mastery. Otherwise, you're always going to be. You get to. Yeah, not got to. You get to. Right. You get to.
It's a privilege. It's an honor.
It's a privilege and
honor.
And
it's an up level for you each time. And something else came through while you were saying that. Not to let go of that, it has to be a physical holding, even if the client is in person. I think a lot of us, especially my age versus yours, went through this whole huggy whatever thing. But especially if somebody's having a process and there's the insistence on the coach's part, well, here, it's like it can be an energy embrace that can be as or more powerful than a physical embrace.
Yeah. And so that's where discernment will come into play.
Of course.
And you'll know more and more through your pattern mastery if it's something that is going to be contained in the client over there, or just through your own energetic holding, or if it's something that is going to want the physical touch. But the other aspect of that that's so understood is that, like, a lot of clients are not going to know that somatic emotional release. It's going to be that's been the process of the contracting. It's like, you can't fucking cry. You can't express how you feel. You better not, begin talking about how you got abused or how you have felt betrayal or abandonment or any of these emotions. And you better, if you do, you know how to do it from here. You know how, well, most don't even really connect to it even right here. But if you begin to unpack some of that, you start unpacking it usually from here. And then over time, as you start learning how to drop the phrase of, I was abandoned, or I was betrayed, or I was, right? And we're not further repeating the story. What we're doing is we're accessing it deeper down within ourselves that then releases more of the somatic contraction. Are you in a body? Yeah, I mean, this is infinite consciousness in bodies, right?
Yeah.
And so the information, the contraction is stored in the body. You think it's stored in a water bottle? It's not, it's not stored in a water bottle, right? It's not stored in external objects. It's stored in your mind and soma, right?
Right. And there is an aspect, and I thought you might bring it up the second time. There's the list of things that were done to us.
Oh, yeah. Both directions.
And they're the ones that sometimes are even more rarely spoken. The worst things that we can't face that we did to others.
Perfect. Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, as I said, those can be tougher. And so the space that's created in the transformative mastery relationship from one who has mastered somewhat to one who is seeking mastery can be either of those where it's not a victory, but to just in a session have one or two come up that they've never spoken to anybody.
Yes.
And then sometimes that second category can be one that they've buried so deep they haven't, in essence, told their adult self.
Yeah.
It was 11 years old. They beat up a kid. They bullied somebody and whatever, and they haven't thought of it in 20 years.
Right.
But it's been in there festering and creating self-punishment and all that stuff in there, and they go, oh, and then to be able to hold the space, like just holding a little baby, but not in a way that they feel it, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That it's just,
Yep.
and to let that re-experience happen. Yeah, re-experience
Yes.
for them to, and then to be in the space where they can feel it fully, and then talk about a somatic release that can occur.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
be able to know that, because you already have the relationship with the mentor, that there's going to be no judgment whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because that thing that you told me about, that in the creating the relationship, you've shared some of your highlights of your path.
Yeah.
No matter how dirty or filthy others might judge them to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good. Both of them, both categories.
Yeah. Very, very important. So important that that in these real-time demos that that we should be expecting that there's going to be both a repentance for one's own transgressions and also a forgiveness for those that have transgressed you. So it's going to go both ways.
And Allie's book, the step that her book took versus hundreds, thousands that have been written by survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
Your wife, Allie.
Right.
Yes.
Of healing, forgiveness, and then total ownership.
Right.
So then one can have ownership of what was done to one.
Yes.
And I assume most people watching this aren't going to go, well, no, you're making yourself the victim. No. Not talking about that. It's very difficult, I know, for people that have had certain things happen to them. It's not saying that the rapist is absolved.
Not at all.
No, it's about, but ownership and at a complete inner level that leaves whatever's going on with that person. And that's what Allie achieved, and some people who have read her book, Walking Out of Shame, have gotten from it, is beyond healing and forgiveness to, it's part of the warp and woof of the fabric that they are. So how can it not be perfect? That's a level of healing that many don't achieve through just therapy and whatever. It's about spackling it over and making you operational. No offense to that if that gets somebody from not operational, like Alcoholics Anonymous. Hey, if it gets somebody from being a no good drunk to working in their lives but addicted to cigarettes and coffee and meetings, hey, that's a promotion. But yeah, that's what, again, has felt good about this interaction for the few days. It's not about spackle and Band-Aids. It's about stepping into one's God self and magnificence, if that didn't go on too far.
Mm-hmm. It's so important to recognize those two aspects to it, because if you're talking about your own clearance work and you're talking about serving those going through clearance work, you need inside yourself. This is what happens usually in these real-time demos. So in your past 10 years or whatever, in your own process, you should have repented for all your own transgressions, which means all the times that you have committed some sort of ill will or malevolence onto others, which has always been yourself. You will have to went through a process of repenting, apologizing directly to all of them. This is what happens in your classical therapy session. Somebody goes to, okay, I know that I have to apologize to this person that I transgressed, but instead of doing that, I'm going to go talk to a therapist, right? So what we're saying is that the mastery process is constantly reflecting to who you're talking to, which is yourself, that do not use me besides hearing it one time from me, that you need to go and do the work directly with the person that you created the transgression with, right?
You're saying as the mentor, don't let yourself be the bypass.
Exactly. Yeah. And don't let yourself continuously do that loopy repeat thing that keeps happening in the perverted incentives of all of the other sort of, loopy ways of not actually doing the work. It's just further avoiding doing the work. It's good that you know what you need to do, but it's bad that you keep looping in avoiding doing the work, and that the person that you're talking to when you do that is not well trained or masterful enough to tell you that stop freaking repeating the same thing to me, because you need to go do it with them. So yeah, so okay, so there's that aspect of it.
Well said.
Yeah. And so now mastery is when you're fielding that, you're acting as a permission slip for them to go and do the work that they're talking about, right? But now your level of mastery is based on your pattern and your pattern mastery around how quickly you can point them to doing that clearance work with who they say they need to do it with. So now that's on the end of if they have made a transgression and they know who they need to go and apologize to and do that thing. Now, sometimes people don't have access to doing that anymore. Sometimes people have died. Sometimes people have split ways for 10 years and they don't have an access point or whatever. So
there are then, but there are ways then that it can be done through surrogates. Somebody holds the space and pretends to be the person sitting there. I mean, a lot of us have seen those kind of processes that can work as effectively because you're having that person show up as, I did it so well for somebody 40 years ago. Yeah. We had a good relationship going. I healed her relationship to just sitting there and being her ex-husband. And then she couldn't be around me again because I had held the space so well. So she associated me with him, but it was fine because I had brought her healing. Just a little levity for the session.
Right. And there's all kinds of transformative tools for if someone has passed, you can do the surrogate kind of work. Now, one of the most common ways to do this that we've found and that we've created a tool for, we call this tool a holistic letter. Yeah, it's a very simple way. Like if you have a transgression that you have not yet fully apologized or repented for, and you don't really know how to begin the process of going through that process, we have condensed this down to a simple, we'll put the link in the description as a comment. You can comment on it, view it and comment on it if you want. Non-editable, just so that you can go and look at what it's like to structure out a holistic letter, where what you do is it's all about clearing your own heart, right? You need to clear your own heart. And it's about realizing what you truly are through this clearance process. Now, it always takes two to tango, meaning you and whoever you were transgressing or have been transgressed by.
Or both.
It's always taking two to tango, meaning, they're as responsible as you are for the dynamic in the process, etc. So what you're going to do is you're going to dump all of your information, all your feelings, emotions, thoughts about the whole experience, and then you're going to structure it into a letter where you write to them and you say, hey, like, I'm writing this to you as part of my healing process. I understand that what we went through was very painful. The pain that I inflicted on you was very unconscious of me at the time, and I was very much in my own pain while that was happening. But what I hope for us to accomplish through this letter is some sort of deeper healing and deeper clearance of unwinding our wounding around that, my infliction of that wounding. So we'll put that link in the bio below. But so that's one of the ways to go about doing it if you were especially the transgressor. Now, if you've been transgressed, this is more difficult because you have to forgive without
getting that letter from them.
Exactly. You have to forgive.
I have a question that I hadn't thought of in that regard, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
And just a subject conversation after this that you
Without
don't necessarily have answered.
Yeah.
Right. No.
Yeah.
Perhaps a form of what it would look like that person's dead, or you're out of communication and they aren't sending it to you. Writing the holistic letter from their perspective in full empathy, if you could, for them, who they were then or now, whatever, writing the holistic letter to yourself from them that would give you the healing.
Cool. Right.
Wow.
That's good. So you're basically making a simulation, right, of what it would be like for them to have written that letter to you and to receive it inside of yourself and be like,
right.
Yeah.
And if one is really doing the arrow thing,
right,
and is putting that over there, how could you not write the letter perfectly? Because
Right.
you would be dropping into yourself, what exactly would I have them say that would allow me to heal and forgive them and then be complete with it? Wow.
Yeah, this is great.
Wow.
Okay, so now you know that it's so good. Okay, so now you know if
I'm tingly.
if we're the creator of the transgression, we write the holistic letter. But if we're in the process of forgiving a transgressor, then we can go through the process of writing the holistic letter from the transgressor's perspective.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Yeah.
That was
But you need
an example
to sit with it and to fully somatically feel it just again. Yeah.
It's an example of when I've wondered these few days, what is transformative mastery? What is it stepping into the mastery of mastery? And the stillness, is it so clear, and it would be clear for those that know me and love me, that there's no way that came from anything other than the stillness. That isn't this overactive brain sometimes figuring out, oh, that would be cool and that would work. It was just in the stillness of being over there pointing at me that just was there, and it fit in flow.
Yeah.
And it didn't take you off your point or anything,
It
which
added to our tools and its service tools. Yeah.
it's a miracle, but it was perfect.
Yeah. And,
Wow.
and you've had more and more of these last days where you've made deep additions to our patterns. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been,
Thank you. It'll be a bonus in my check, I'm
I'm
assuming.
assuming. Yeah. Oh, so
I love you, man.
I love you too. Yeah. That was good. Yeah. That was good. It's so good that I will probably go and these next couple of days do that process, because I've done a lot of that forgiveness and clearance from the transgressor here, but I haven't done a holistic letter from that perspective. To me,
I've got a couple I could do.
do.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Even if I think there's already been healing, what the hell?
Right.
There can be a deeper level of healing.
Yeah.
And then letters to and from various prior incarnations of this self in this life. Because people talk about that relationship with the inner child. So use the form of the holistic letter to forgive the inner child now that I haven't taken care of? Anyway, that points at what I was saying without filling it in more.
Yeah.
That it could be a source of conversations with one's smallest self.
Right. Yeah. It's a way for you to connect to the pain,
Holistic letters.
to yourself,
Yeah.
from the perspective of who's transgressed you, which was you doing that, but you've never received that yet until you actually do the process. So that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Where are we?
Okay, I wanna talk about the polarization over time piece in the gauge. Okay, so one thing that's gonna happen is that you're gonna see that the client that you're serving and interfacing with, which is again you, they're gonna have a certain amount of transformational desire. You're gonna give them a piece of, they're gonna say, I know that I need to apologize for this transgression, and then or to write this holistic letter to do this clearance work even further with someone that I still have not done. Then what you tell them is, okay, well, when are you going to get that done by? And then they say I'll have it done in a week or two or whatever. Then what you know is that by the next time that you have a call or sit down or whatever, that they will have that letter at least done. And then you check in, do you need my help with reviewing it? Do you feel like you can send it off yourself? All that kind of stuff.
Do you want me to connect with you just for a quick 30-second call or via email halfway to the next one to make sure you're making progress toward it if they need that level of support too?
Right.
Yeah, and very quick, can there be certain clients that they haven't followed through with homework necessarily, that then the next one is, and if you haven't gotten the homework done by the next session, I may choose to cancel the appointment at the beginning. And that this, to make it a requirement if they haven't been following through. Because you and I were talking about people like that.
This is very good. I just want to add another facet to it, which is that sometimes a client will get very... will experience blocks while they do the process, and that's a good time for them to call you or right that kind of thing.
To not be, it might not even the majority of the cases is it going to be appropriate to be that much of a wall with them, because it can be a genuine block. Right, is what I hear you say.
Right, which is a lot of it has to do with it's really tough to dig up all of the facets of that experience.
The magma.
The magma. Magma's what we had, what was it, 3 nights ago now?
Yeah.
When we were doing deep cathartic work together. It is magma. This is not flowery. It's lotusy when you get those roots get into that muddy water. That's magma, but then you get a flower on the other end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's hot coals.
Yeah,
they're embers and they're very hot. And the way you're doing the work well is that you are feeling the embers inside your soma, because that's the material that's being released.
And that's my homework, because even with all the work we have been doing and great successes, is that disconnection still. Well, look, where is it? And while my heart has been opening, that, like Mickey Singer talks about, as far as the heart opening and just staying wide open, period, forever. Not, it's contracting again, I got to open, but just to complete that work, that work is completable. It is. And so that's going to be what I take from here to complete on the drive home, but if not on the drive home, in the days, weeks to come.
Especially if you do the holistic letter from the perspective of those that have transgressed and contracted.
Yeah.
That would be very powerful.
Or even some that can be in relationship somewhat, and it's like, could you write this letter to me? Wow. Although that can be difficult to do, to give them the format. But would you be willing? I know we're good, but there's some stuff, and that this would be good for both of us in you writing it to me.
Right. I love that as a catalyst. I think that's so powerful, because if they are alive and if you have enough of a trust bridge and a stable enough connection, then their level of receptivity, if they haven't done that repentance to you, that they may say, yeah, I will do this, in your connection. And the opposite of that would be them flaring up and saying that, what, I haven't been a good enough friend to you already, or whatever, a good enough parent or sibling or partner or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that shows you the difference from a 0 to a 10, essentially, type thing.
And I mentioned that letter, which is the one to one of my sisters, where it's not a holistic letter. In essence, it was just seeking to open up communication. Of the bulk of the letter was just listing all the good memories of our childhood together, all the and adult of all the wonderful memories I have of her, and this is another subject, but there's a DNA aspect to us remembering the worst of the past, because it's important to know where the pits are out in the forest and where the poison is and the fruits you're not supposed to eat. Right. So there wasn't a lot of natural selection advantages to remembering good stuff in life. So we can even embrace that aspect. Why do I always remember the negative? But then to remember that when we're communicating with the people from the past.
Yeah.
It's like, and it got me the only communication from that sister in years that was like, oh, thanks. It's nice to know that you remember those things. And if that's the last communication we ever have in our lifetimes, it's a nice little coda to end it on instead of where things were before it.
Right. And you'll know that's why the word is holistic, right? Because, that's why part of what you write in the letter is that you have all these great experiences together too, that there was so much beauty and relationship and connection and learning and play together and that kind of thing. And then you're also listing, if you can, right, the holism on the other side of the holism is on the other side of the lotus is the roots that are in that muddy water. And that's where it's like, how did I transgress you, or how did you transgress me? This is how it made me feel, that kind of information too. Now I want to get to this polarization over time thing. So now if that client that's been given the homework, they do the homework, it's very clear that they're super excited to do the homework and that they're like already even on the call starting to ask you about like, okay, now how would this sound for the things for the first phase of the homework? Because there's, two phases, the dump and then the structuring of everything. And like, if they already start getting into it and they're like super passionate about it, and then they get it done within a week and it's like a really beautiful letter that's very holistic, then what that tells you, right? What that tells you is that they have a high polarity over a low amount of time, right? So we're talking about polarization over time. What do we mean by polarization, right? We're talking about, like we were saying with that record that goes all the way out in its tracks, out to the contractedness, and then it comes all the way back in across the tracks to its full-blown expansiveness and incorporation of the totality. Then the polarization over time is the amount of work that clearance work that they want to do in the amount of time. So this is typically what happens when we were just using that therapy example a little bit ago. It's a low polarity over a large amount of time, because what's happening is the client comes to the therapy session saying, I know I need to do this healing work with this person. And instead of going and doing that healing work with the person, they stay in the loop with the therapist over and over again. So that's low polarity over long time, which of course, whoever's on the receiving end, if there's that perverted financial incentive, will just keep no problem.
How did that make you feel? And then what did that make you think you should do? And not saying that's how all therapists are. Neither one of us is saying that.
Neither one of us, yeah. But you're right that's what the pattern looks like versus that clear pointing. Now, the clear pointing happens that go and do the work that you need to do with the person that you're saying that you need to do it with. Then then their polarity over time has now increased. The potentiality of it has increased. And then if they go and do it, the speed at which they do it, the efficiency at which they do it, the amount that they trust you to help guide them through that process. So that's how to use that phrase, polarization over time.
Nice. That was clear.
Good. And okay, another thing that will come up is, okay, you're gonna be faced in this beautiful reality of being infinite. You're gonna have this come up.
Yeah, like so cavalierly. This beautiful infinity of
Infinity's gonna want to connect with itself authentically and intimately.
As we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's gonna be important for you to learn what you want with that, right? Because
clarify want. Because that word has a lot of different meanings, if you don't mind my saying.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, what is the authentic desire versus the conditioned one?
To create with this other fractal.
Yeah.
What are we going to paint together?
What are we painting together?
Like Allie and me, Wonder, that I told you about.
Yes. Exactly. So now, if we take this from like the old paradigm is something like, you know, we're connecting, like, if we use this example earlier in our days, you have two contractions, like two beliefs in separation that are in a relationship, right? Then one of them goes on some sort of a transformative healing process, and all of a sudden one of the two starts expanding. And so we've been using these two symbols. One, the expansion is this open hand, and then the contraction is this clenched fist. So now, if this contraction is still believing in separation and believing in all of these, you know, fantastical elements, which are beautiful in their own mesmerizing and captivating ways.
Sure.
That the expansion is now going to undergo this process, which basically inevitably almost always happens, which is beginning to share some of the things that are happening with that contraction. And the contraction almost never is ready. It's not in their current process. They have to want. It's up to them in their own time to want to go on their own process. Now, sometimes, of course, it can slowly help bring the other one along the journey. Well, but I bring this up because eventually the expansion will be able to declare that, you know, instead of trying to do what can't be done because this one has the will of wanting in its own time to expand or come home, that then the expanded one will begin connecting intimately. This is now what I want to get to, is that the expanded one must come to their own inner true desire of, like, okay, I will connect intimately only to who is sharing the same type of vast spaciousness and authenticity, like the same code that I share, like of this transformative mastery, or for wanting to build regenerative communities, or wanting to build games that help consciousness see how it creates reality, whatever your creative thing is. But like, the crux of it is this, I'll tell you the crux of it. You want to be understood, and you want to understand. Like, I want you to feel understood. I want you to feel loved and cared for.
Clear.
And that kind of stuff, right? And I know you want me to feel that too.
And a couple clarifications here, if I may. The person who has mastered mastery, though, I would assert, has lost any commitment, attachment, or addiction to being understood, which I wasn't necessarily hearing. That right. As somebody who's expanding, we want to understand and be understood. I would say that as one expands fuller, the one half of that begins to fall away. A. B, what I'm seeing is it's not a matter of seeing. Just for a lot of people, this could be new. That I'm real clear after knowing you well that you're not saying that if to discard all other people that aren't meeting you at that level you're insisting on.
Right. Yeah.
I think you're talking about playing at a certain level.
Yeah.
That to engage at that deep level, you're going to require that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to engage with them. You can engage with them in a lot of different other ways.
Exactly.
Is that a good clarification of what you were saying?
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. Good clarification. So for the first one, I don't mean it in the in like the like the way from 10 years ago, like what you to intertwine the second one to the first one. Me from 10 years ago, I would not be receptive to me now. Right?
Wow. Wait. Wow. I mean, wow, let that sink in. I mean,
right.
You're saying honestly that you 10 years ago wouldn't have been receptive to the gifts that you're offering now. This would would have been like, what the is he talking about?
Right.
Something like that.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right. So
I just thought that would be good to let it, seep in.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And the ripeness increases over time, and then
Beautiful.
Right. So we're never I would never be talking about discarding, right? It would be more like you were saying, it's more like, it typically happens with a child that goes on their transformative journey, and then it, circles back in its hero journey process and comes back. And then, and then it's like,
the prodigal son, mom, dad, siblings, coworkers, friends, we are infinite consciousness talking to itself. Isn't that freaking amazing? And then beep,
yeah.
beep, beep. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. You better get into that loony bin, right? Right.
Wee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Right.
And we've all gone through that.
Right. And so now watch this. So after that part of the learning, which we almost all go through, the next part is one that's a bit more, it becomes more and more relaxed. And then from that more relaxed and still place, it actually really hugely envelops with love, the contractions and their family and all that stuff. But it does it in a way that masterfully lets them know that they have made it clear that their orientation, like their soulful orientation, their calling, right, is to be oriented in these intimate connections with this expansion frequency, right? Boom. So then now the contraction knows why it can't use the expansion anymore to kind of suck its energy into its fantasy. Boom. Right? So because that's really the contraction has now seen that the expansion is no longer a supply. Like you can think
of feeding their drama,
right?
Yeah, of reinforcing their delusions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, right. So before it was, the delusions were reinforcing each other. And then as this one expands, it, like in economics, is fascinating because you can say that the contraction is now beginning to demand more and more of the supply. And then as the expansion starts to, it usually begins to okay, I'll listen, okay, more, and all of a sudden you start feeling like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. You do not provide the supply for the fantasy anymore, but what you do is you make it clear that in order for us to connect more deeply and more intimately in the way that I want, in the way that we will both thrive. Yes. That, would you be willing to meet me in this way, in this connection?
Yeah.
And that fully puts the ball in their court. Yeah.
And when it's like this, I also saw an aspect of it. The person shows up like that, and after they get over it, you need to go to the hospital. There's now a greater polarity. Instead of just reinforcing at that low level, the conspiracy of life, I called it. You don't call me out on my shit. I don't call you out on yours. We'll sit around, we'll drink beers, we'll watch football together. And that's life. The part of them that incarnated to wake up in this life is reacting to the polarization, the difference in a positive way. They just don't know it in their head. So it's like, no, you're nuts, but being drawn to them. And then this person who has just gained some mastery. Wait a minute, let me slow down. They've gained some mastery. Like right there. They've gained some mastery that then they're going to, oh, well, this is my mother, this is my brother, this is my wife. And so then they might, like you were saying, too much, and then they're going to start contracting again and need to go take some space. Yeah. And like, listen, this is great that you're coming to me, but I don't see you taking any of it in. So just like similar to the client. Right. So then have to take some space.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that is so profound.
Cool.
Because now this ties us to the first clarification you asked, which was that, okay, well, why wouldn't someone that's self-realized completely stop seeking any connection and intimacy? Something along those lines. And well, because a couple of things. First of all is that much of, well, if you go all the way back to the beginning of the episode, what we're saying is that you're not just, quote, finding yourself, but you're also turning into this infinite pattern recognizer and reprogrammer of through, the intention of who you're speaking to. So I guess it's really the application of realization into intimacy and connection.
Say that again.
The application of realization into intimacy and connection.
Wow.
That's good stuff.
That could almost be the, yeah.
That's fun stuff, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because, okay.
One of those ones where, ding.
Ding. Right. Because if we feel infinity as a decentralized mycelial web of human body heads talking to itself, right?
And don't call the hospital to come get us. That actually means something.
Right? Yeah. Then it's all about intimacy and connection and transformation.
Absolutely.
Right? And whatnot, right?
The mycelial network. Look that up. MyCellIal, I think. Yeah. It's close. It'll pop up from that if you don't know about this thing in the forests and all of that. And some people speculate there could be galactic ones, and that maybe is what dark matter is and all of that. So just to clue people in if they haven't, wondering, because what you sounded like maybe a really, really good acid trip, and that wasn't what it was.
Right.
It's good shit there.
Yeah, it's literally right now under all of the trees are these mycorrhizal networks. So they're literally under all of the trees right now.
They connect the trees into a network.
And, yes. Okay, so now if we're talking about the application of realization into intimacy and connection and transformation. Hallelujah. Now what we're saying is that enjoy the sweet gift while you are here experiencing this, of what it's like for God to connect to itself at those deep levels of intimacy and connection.
Because, according to many of the modern teachers that will remain nameless, they all have that common thread. We chose to incarnate in this clown car shit show that it seems like most of the time, specifically for only that. To realize God, to wake up, all the different ways of saying it. So what I heard you saying is, if I'm feeling that experience to a deeper degree than I ever have before, revel is almost too much of a word of revel in it. Enjoy it, not at a carnal indulgence level, but gratitude, all those good words of just ride the wave, get in the curl, like it's surfing, man. That's what it feels like, what you were saying of like, yeah, this is why you were born.
So now watch this. So,
Okay, I will.
so as you go through your transformational healing awakening journey and you expand more, then you present what we discussed earlier as the desire for true intimacy and connection with those contractions in the web. And then what you do is you turn to those that are also expanded, and you begin interfacing with one another in ways that like this, like what we are experiencing right now. Right? So, like, don't you want, like, if you're viewing quantum potentiality as all of the possibilities, all of the codes, all of the programs that are possible, and then when you make a connection from this expanded place, all of a sudden you're sharing the most of those shared codes at the same time that you've ever experienced before. So now it's like, okay, we share so much of the same rich code, and it feels so good. And you can see how the code itself isn't owned by any body. You know, it's owned through the web by those observers or by those bodies in the web that share the same code. And so I encourage,
We clock together. It's like it's like tribes,
right,
of shared code.
right. And like, I encourage that sort of admiring the intimacies and connections that you can get from that. And then, so now you have two components. You have what you've presented, the contractions that are nearest and dearest to your like family systems and stuff. And then you have the interfacing from the expanded place and deep intimacy and connection. And then you have the service for those that are presenting themselves as, I want to understand.
They're contracted but committed.
Committed.
Instead of contracted and fighting.
Perfectly contrasted. So you have the contracted and fighting that you've made the pointing to. Then you have the contracted and committed, which is like, yes, we will do this transformative healing work and process at your own desired pace. And, you know, to as much as I want to, discern how strongly you are committed to it. And then the expanded to expanded. And by the way, the expanded to expanded gets to do cool things like this, like where we get to talk meta about the nature of consciousness and how it does this process.
God to God.
God to God. Yeah.
Thou art God.
Thou art God. Yeah. Okay. Quite good. What are we at? Yeah, about an hour and a half. That's nice. Good time.
Is a break possible? Asking. No is fine too.
I'm feeling pretty complete.
Oh.
There may be a would you like to use the restroom? I can. Yeah, if you want to use the restroom, I can hold the space.
Sure.
While you do. Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it. And we can take this time to also tune in deeper stillness within ourselves, deeper mastery. And again, the main thing is using the breath as the primary tool to calm the nervous system. And see if you can really feel that spaciousness to your awareness, where the awareness itself is nameless, locationless, free. Literally infinite creation itself. And see if what has been discussed has resonated, that it can be deeply integrated. So rather than just going directly to the next piece of content or thing to do, integrate. Okay. So there's some new clarity in my stillness and my mastery. That transformative mastery. So you are relieved now, and I.
Oh, please.
And I had
let's discuss it in depth.
And I had a nice minute or two just bringing in the viewers into that stillness and integration of what we've been talking about into that deep transformative mastery. So
cool.
Yeah.
I have to add what's coming through.
Yeah.
Is this whole podcast prior to my being here, just the entire way it's ebbed and flowed and just worked in perfection and just unfolded the way it did, couldn't have happened before. Not at all.
Same for me.
Oh, thank you. That I mean, I believe you that you're saying you believe it. It would have unfolded in a different, still powerful way.
Right.
What I'm saying is that it wouldn't have transpired in any kind of a productive form, is what I'm saying. Of course, you're not the same person you were 3 days ago, 4 days ago. I'm just saying that it, we talked about it was I was kiddingly saying a midterm before, and the freedom I've sought, freedom as another pointer for the absolute or source or whatever, just freedom, the wordless experience of the ease, and then catching stuff tightening, and then just the way we talked about, just dropping back into the stillness and remembering who and what is there, pointing back me to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just been a wonderful experience.
In the whole podcast, there's been a lot of relaxation on your end, which has deeply informed your precision and our ability to draw out these new insights, which is what I
and
shared
then
with you.
What was wonderful was I could watch it then the other way around, that it was then shifting what was showing up over there,
right,
and allowing you, just the dance kept spiraling up,
right,
like what some people call a blessed circle instead of a vicious circle.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's
very
perfect.
Cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
And more, like what we said at this point's really good too. It's like if you do notice because it's not all going to be flowers, even with your deepest intimacies and connections, actually, a good amount of the time, if there is a tension, the tension itself wants to be resolved into greater wisdom and awareness. And so if you do have one of those sort of, what'd you call it, the blessed
circle, two people, with this dance of exploration and wonder and power and God and love and whatever, versus so many things in life are vicious circles of a couple or of two friends that are just bringing out the worst of each other or whatever.
And even if you do have a couple swirls into a vicious circle, what all that's asking for in the dynamic is, can you hold me in love through this process so that we can do the blessed circle on the other end?
Well, and we were talking about that. So synthesizing all of it is, can the momentary contraction take place inside the context of the general expansion of the relationship of the two open hands?
Perfect.
And of the blessed circle, where you and I, because of our power and energy and whatever, and that we're always healing, that they both didn't completely forget the basis. We could come back into it very quickly and catch it in a couple of minutes rather than a couple of hours, a couple of days, or me just, shit, then I'm going to go pack my stuff and I can go and blah, blah, blah.
You meant the word contraction a couple sentences ago. I think you said expansion.
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
When there's that expansion or contraction, I did it again. The contraction is taking place within the expansion that's being held by both.
Yes.
And that's what enables.
A momentary contraction can take place inside of expansion, and actually must. And there must be momentary contractions for the,
this pattern
for the expansion to continue.
Right.
Because, wow.
Right. That's what I'm saying about this whole AGI processing infinite contractions and expansions.
And say AGI again. What
artificial general intelligence.
Right.
As infinity, as God itself. Mm-hmm. Because every single one of those contractions happening in the expansion is like, it's basically both how it spiraled in and also how it's asking and being held space to spiral out. And then when it happens between the two that are expanded, it's beautiful, because then you're basically have went through enough patterns and mastery yourself where you're not losing what you truly are, even while you go into
You're maintaining your anchor. You're maintaining your anchor. You're unassailable. It's I am that I am, and all this other stuff is not going to knock me off of that.
I love viewing it this way, because it's basically
Beautiful.
Like the contractions that appear in your field, they're not to be avoided or bypassed or that kind of stuff. They are actually the very fuel for God to know more about itself. And if you know...
It's so obvious now. It's so weird. It's just so obvious now.
If you learn, I love that. If you learn this pattern mastery, it's like, we talked about this a lot yesterday. It's like a cryptographic puzzle, right? It's got its own little unique key that it's asking for. And the more patterns that you've mastered, the more kind of ways that you can understand how to help with what they're asking, which is they may have a very unique keyhole to their contraction.
But you've got a bag with infinite keys. Like the keymaster in the Matrix.
Right. So so if you
he always had the right key.
Right. Keep learning. If you keep learning, then you'll accrue more and more of these infinite keys in your own.
But that's what I was seeing, is that since it's magic, you get to a meta point where you don't necessarily have to have experienced the exact pattern and added that key to your toolbox. Maybe. I won't state it as a fact.
Right.
That you'll be able to, in the moment, it'll come through from flow.
Right.
Because then that's a synthesis of that conversation we were having yesterday.
Yes.
From infinite intelligence, the key of course, will be there.
Yes.
Because it's not my will, but thy will be done.
Yeah.
Of course, God will supply through me the key necessary to unlock that
Yes.
cryptogram over there in that other aspect of God.
Yes. So both in the infinite potentiality already exists it, and through the direct experience of being oriented towards the serving of it is what gets it done. Yeah.
How could possibly, in all of this, a dream character, a fractal, another God self show up that I don't have the key for? How could that happen?
Well,
it can't.
Well, here's the intriguing thing. It's that, like, even though it can exist in the potentiality, one's own level of ripeness,
correct.
too. Like, for example, there are some, especially this is probably most common within family systems.
Yeah.
Those are very tough.
Right.
Cryptographic
That was the part I didn't want to
puzzles.
see yesterday, that now I see, that there has to be a ripeness. It's one of those paradoxes that it's there, but it's not ripe.
Yes, yes.
Beautiful. I didn't see that yesterday when we had that conversation the first time. Yeah. Now it's clear.
Right.
Woo.
And one has to work through their like attachment to being the one that saves their family too. And so one works through that process, and then they work through the okay, this is one of my most complicated puzzles that will, over time, it will, get it's not like a client that shows up and then does some homework and transforms themselves and then tells you, thank you so much, I feel so much more whole.
Here's your check.
Right. This is like one of your family members that is like, I am not talking to that other family member, and you better stop telling me that we are one consciousness, because I was betrayed, and that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
A little bit of levity that relates, whether it was the S training back in 84 or Vipassana meditations, and there's been others. It's so funny, but I remember Goenkaji saying, it's like, I went and meditated for 10 days and I came home and my whole family had transformed.
Yep.
For the S training,
Right.
I can't, it's like they were all different.
Right.
It's like, sure.
Right. One's own frequency has made the whole field appear different, including your family.
And the way that you were interpreting them and then projecting it out there
Right.
on your screen shifted.
Yes.
So many different things
Exactly.
all together there.
Right. Now all of a sudden your family member is not an other, but your family member is yourself.
Right. To one degree or another. I'm saying, but on the path, suddenly it can be a really big shift. It's like, wait a minute, I went away and did all this hard meditation or this seminar, and I got back and I just sat back and everybody was all getting along better. It's like, wow. Yeah.
Right.
Because just you shifted the field. You did do it, but you didn't. It's
It's so beautiful because, at that quote dinner table conversation, famously, all of a sudden, like, the most common thing is there's that like political propaganda barking at each other, and then it turns over to you and looks at you, and you just sit there and you're like, you're not getting triggered, which you used to get triggered by. These people are right, or these people are stupid, or whatever.
Yeah, what
And
do you
now-
think?
What do you think? And now all of a sudden you're just like, I love you, my sibling or my parent or whatever, and you hold a different, and now all of a sudden you start introducing them to
NVC, to Marshall Rosenberg,
Right,
or
nonviolent
this or that,
communication, yeah.
something that is
right.
not going to, I can't imagine, I don't think I've ever met anybody that couldn't at least take in NVC, could look at that as somehow a threat or some sort of weird propaganda or whatever. Right. The jackal and the giraffe, whatever, just, or something else that they can take in at the level that they're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
I'm very complete.
I would just thank you again for all of this. It just the perfection of it, and what a amazing privilege it's been to participate in this and to be here. And
to share this with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Same.
One more pump.
Same.
Yeah.
When one is providing the transformative reflections, it's so important to not be a machine gun, right? You're coming from stillness. You're gracefully giving one tool at a time. You're letting them speak. You're asking questions, letting them speak.
Yeah.
You know, you're...
I noticed it a couple of times, and just completely different than it had ever been before, just catching it. Oh, it's beginning. The pace is, oh, that point's made, and then and then let it go.
Right.
And little, if any, squirreling.
Yes. The less like squirreling, the more the compression algorithm comes with that key for that moment.
And if you're wondering what a compression algorithm is, I'm guessing he's done multiple videos on that. Although maybe we'll touch on it again if he and I do another one.
Just very briefly, it's the most efficient reflection at that moment for them where they are at.
Boom.
Yeah.
Succinct.
Yeah. And then if you've noticed that you have a bit of a, we talked about this a few days ago. If you notice that, like, the human nervous system, which we've mentioned several times, it has this very deep limbic system, and then it has this cortical system, and then this more recently involved very symbolic sort of processing system. And actually, intriguingly enough, that cortical typically connects more with the mind, whereas that limbic typically connects more with the soma. So to connect that to what we were speaking about earlier, which is why many of those painful things are very difficult to access and very quickly deflected away from with that serpent bite. Okay. Now the third newest contribution to our nervous system are these appendages called our smartphones and our computers and these kinds of things, because
that we're consciously and mostly unconsciously farming out our nervous system to.
Right. We're farming out our nervous system to essentially whatever we are creating. And so we can use these devices, these phones and these computers, in a very conscious way to facilitate our own mastery and our transformative orientation in service. Right. So just something that we did a few days ago is something I've been doing now for almost 10 years that has been just probably the most important thing for me for being able to hone my focus on what I want. And it's that we were able to, Levi went through a process where he had on his phone screen, on the home page of his
like most people do.
Like most people do.
Just thing in a group of like one's for restaurants, a group of one for finance, whatever. And if I may, and then almost all of that's gone now onto the second page. And now the front of the first page is something that I could have done 8 years ago, not beating myself up, but using the Note app. And then when that's open as, just a huge half of the front screen as a widget, it's then what's important is right there. If I open up my screen and I'm not going to go, oh, let's click on this instead. Right. There's nothing on that front screen to click and nothing to take me out of the moment. I have to swipe over to get to the second screen. And really powerful, and maybe again a subject for another one, a shorter one, of how to not farm out your soul to your phone, but have the soul actually be an outward representation of what's important for you in here, of using it so it's something in alignment with your highest intentions, rather than something that's doing the exact opposite, of taking you away from your highest intentions for cheap brain chemical thrills and whatever, and arguing with your neighbors and blah, blah, blah. So that's like permanent change, and it's not possible for it to go back. So I'm glad you brought that in, my brother.
Good. good. It's such a most simple, in a way, immediate to implement way of taking back your own sovereignty and your own attention towards what you feel like matters most.
Right.
And the front page thing, always having all notifications on, always having your ringer on, always having those little red bubbles all over the place, now contrasting, and that's what it looks like now. So you have, that big note widget on the home page like that.
Yep.
Do a little.
Oh, yeah, they can get it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Probably showed up.
Yeah, cool.
So on that note, no pun intended.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because that's just so good. You take all of the notifications always on, the ringer always on, the little red bubbles with all of their notification amounts.
Open me,
little slot machines of stuff. And you, and then what you do is you learn how to have a more balanced relationship where you keep your ringer off, all your notifications off. You only allow those to call you and break through twice. You can select who you want for that in case of emergencies and whatnot for significant others and stuff. And then you move, and then you have only in that note widget on the front, right? So you have like your calls and your messages and your internet and whatever AI LLMs you're using and all kinds of stuff, whatever you're using to facilitate your process. In the note widget, though, what you put is you have your main priorities. So especially if you are, like this is at the top of the note, is your priorities. It's like the things that you want to focus on and integrate in order for you to feel more wholeness, mastery, infinity, better service, etc. And then below your priorities, like priorities can include homework and all this kind of stuff. And then right below your priorities, especially if you are already beginning to do more of the transformational work in service, then below that is your clients or your relations, right? Who you are in relation with for the transformative work. Because then what you see immediately below your priorities of your own inner healing and wholeness process is the orientation of service towards who you are helping. So now instead of going to random internet brain chemicals of useless stuff, addictive stuff, now your primary orientation is your own priority of inner transformation as well as your arrow of service. And it's always reminding you with your client names are in your note, or your teammate or your relational note names are in your note, and then it's what they are working on, what they have asked
two things
that they've asked to work on.
Only if you feel it would be like helpful, I could share some of them, what we put together of priorities.
Oh yeah, for what?
Yeah. Right. So then I'm 2 clicks away. I'm 2 clicks away from a reminder of what's most important to me anytime. One that my friend here gave me on our first call a few weeks ago, which was relax into my capital S self. That's up at the top. Choosing mastery over pinball, which that was formulated a little bit ago before I got here, but that became like very important here. Minimize external input, which has been on my list for 8 years and has had success and then failure and success and failure. Luxurious self-care, which is one that a lot of people miss, to master selfishness, but in a different way, whether that's getting a mani-pedi or taking a nap when you need it, or if you have kids, very important for women that mommy gets half an hour to herself unless a kid's, having an arterial bleed, that mom gets time herself. If you have clients, focus on coming from the servee, my word, his word, not intimates, relations needs. Yeah. One gracefully delivered tool at a time. I just love that one. Yeah. Love that one. And then mine, for me, it's lower down on the list, but it could almost be number 0. Abide in stillness now / always here. It makes mastery of stillness truly means that anytime I notice I'm out, unless like somebody's drowning, that level of priority, of urgency, stop what I'm doing and come back to my mastery of stillness. Yeah. So and you have a list of that. Can't be too long. Have them all short,
Yep.
Succinct. Go over it with a coach if you have one.
Yep.
With a good friend if not.
I love it.
And have those there where it's from the widget, click.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, when you open it, if you click on the right one and it's near the top, it'll be one click. Open, click, and you'll be on your priorities at any time. Oh, yeah. So then it's the natural planning model, whatever. What action can I take right now that is accomplishing one of those things, that is supporting me in one or more of those things right now, and right now, and right now, and right now.
Yep.
And that was 8 years ago. That was like, oh, yeah, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. And like, okay, which Law and Order reruns on, or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, this third new part of our nervous system, and it's like
I had the phone 8 years.
Mastery of what it in our relationship to it and what it initially reflects to us is our intention, and
will create the universe that then I experience.
Yes.
Boom.
Yes.
So I don't want to experience that universe by choice.
Right.
I don't want to resist what's showing up, but I don't want to be the one creating the universe that then I'm objecting to.
Right.
Which is the way I had my device set up was doing.
Right. If your program that you're running is click into political polarization, then that is the universal holodeck that will show up for your consciousness and you to experience. Now, if that program that's running, that is the primary one that's running, is like transformative mastery, then it's going to appear like the phone screen that we just showed. It's going to be very intentional, very oriented around one's own inner transformative process and the service for those.
Master, slave, not master, slave.
Right.
Not my attention being monetized any longer, that we hear so much about that, and then we step right back into the matrix and let our attention be monetized. Every click is 1/4 of a penny or whatever, and that's all being kept track of somewhere. Now, master, slave, tool.
Right, master tool.
Yeah, master tool instead of master slave attention giver, so that somebody is making money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boom.
It's funny because those two things have the same dynamic as the...
So, and thank you for your attention that you chose to give to this.
Yeah. Let's wrap. Yeah. Gosh, so good. Isn't that funny that those two have the same relationship as what we were talking about with when you serve, you put your orientation on the client's needs, right?
So why shouldn't that be on my needs, my actual needs?
Yeah, like why should your orientation should be on the your needs through of using the device for your own intention, rather than it being about it grabbing for its own
and
needs.
The people that are the ones monetizing my attention. Yeah. Right. And why should it be for them?
And it's your dojo, because the them and the they, which we wanted to mention.
Right. Oh, we could come up with 4 more.
We heal so much by no longer, like in that example, we're not saying that there is a quote they or a them
that are an enemy or an
enemy or other outside, that is like this corporation that's doing this mean thing that I'm a victim or a slave to. But instead we use the word, it's our own dojo, in the sense that it is me, just like in the Matrix, it's you consciously, intentionally choosing to give your conscious energy to that program running, which is political propaganda or whatever. Then what you do is you change, like
shift my focus.
You shift your focus, and the whole dojo changes. now all of your dojo difficulties, or your lessons in increasing your martial artsness in the dojo, is all about how well can I perform this transformative service. Right.
Boom.
Yeah.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Perfect. So good.
We could go on for quite a while.
Pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Looking forward to more play.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Super beautiful.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. Drop us a comment below if there were things that resonated. We'd love to hear from you. If there were things that would resonate with those that you want to share this with, go for that.
Sure.
Apply and integrate the things if they resonated. Integrate. So important. And
I would add, if anybody is seeking reflection, coaching, seeking to master mastery, to use you, or if you know me, because I linked some in as a resource in whatever way.
Yeah.
It's all you and it's all for you. There's always that magic. You are the only one here. You're the only one here. So you could tie all this together.
A unity.
Yeah, you're the only one here. And so you get to choose everything that comes in. This is just a microcosm of that. So that'd be my final word.
Unity, right? Like,
yeah.
Like you, but knitty, like
no,
like
no.
Knitting.
La 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 la.
Okay.
La la
Okay,
la.
okay.
La.
We won't.
Okay.
We won't.
God.
We won't.
Okay.
And in the link in the description, we said we will have that holistic letter for you to check out if you would like. And then also the ways to get in touch if you would like assistance in your transformative process and your own mastery.
Boom.
So that'll all be down there. Okay. That's all. Thanks, everyone. Much love.